All right, we're gonna get started in just a second. So if the committee members who are present could take their seats, or at least hover over them, that would be great. Okay. Good evening. Noting the hour and the presence of a quorum, I call the Acton-Boxborough Regional School Committee to order. Members of the public, obviously, who wish to watch this meeting and don't want to brave the weather this evening can watch it on the ActonTV's YouTube website at actontv.org. And as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on ActonTV's website. So welcome, everybody. Very glad that we have electricity and heat back in this building. Very appreciative of that, and that we've got cleared roads and driveways, parking lots. So we are going to get started. The first item on our agenda this evening is the high school student rep update. Do we have any student rep here? Come on down. It is. There we go. Our resident
Thank you very much. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Diksha Mhatre. I'm currently a sophomore. I kind of have a cold right now, which my history teacher calls the funk, so I apologize if I start violently coughing. Since I'm the only one here today, I'll just quickly touch on a couple of things that happened in the past month. So we just had the Flex Block on Tuesday last week during the MCAS Day, which was a lovely community event. We saw organizations such as Tubbit, the Tufts University Prison Initiative. We saw Danny's Place come in and do a workshop. We had alpacas come in from farms. We also had therapy cats and dogs, and also groups at AB had workshops. Some of them are the hip hop workshop from 9 Lives, the dance club. The Muslim Student Association hosted a World Cup game workshop, and there was another Women in Computer Science workshop. So this was an event where a lot of students and staff and a lot of members in our community were present and engaging with each other, and it was a lovely educational opportunity as well. And so I just kind of want to advocate for clubs again, because we wish to have these kinds of community engaging events in the future. Another thing that I want to touch on was, I think it was just yesterday, we were talking to Ms. Dean about Stuco is pushing this Omnibus Academic Reform Act. This is a bill to decrease student stress and improve academic performance through highlighting grade transparency and adding some limits on assignments to decrease that stress and kind of help students manage their time and their mental health. Furthermore, I just want to give a quick shout out to the kitchen staff, teachers, and bus drivers today for having to adapt to the difficult power outage conditions. They did a really good job managing all that. I also want to raise a safety concern about the roads today, since there's lots of student drivers out there. I was talking to a lot of people who had some close calls with driving today, and that was a concern for a lot of students. I'll quickly touch on something that my fellow classmates want to raise, but they are not here today for weather conditions, homework conditions. The math homework doesn't stop. So Molly wanted to just talk about kind of disturbances from students being loud and such, and how it affects concentration in classes. Julia wanted to talk about Window Seat, the art magazine at our school, Window Seat's open mic night. She also wanted to highlight the support from a lot of administration and the importance of all the clubs and extracurricular activities, and a lot of people being able to, again, engage, build that community, up that school morale and school spirit. And so that's the student update for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Diksha. Great job representing all of your fellow students. We appreciate that. Okay, next item is, scroll up, Public participation. Per our school committee policy BEDH, members of the public are invited to speak for up to 3 minutes each. Public participation only takes place at this time of the meeting. Speakers must be recognized by the chair, and the committee does not typically respond to comments during public participation. Do we have anybody here for public participation?
This is old school. I planned on typing it, but I am one of the Acton citizens who had no power till 15 minutes before my school council meeting. So I'm a little less cold and a little less crabby. So here goes. My name is Mary Sakoyanis. I live on Joseph Reed Lane here in Acton. My husband and I have lived in Acton for 33 years. We moved here from Newton, where I was a first grade teacher. Like many of you, we came to Acton in no small part because of the excellent reputation of our schools. We raised 2 daughters here. They attended all AB schools and benefited greatly from the academic rigor, personal attention, teaching excellence, and access to robust opportunities for cultural and social offerings through our schools and through our community. We love this town. We love AB schools. We are now retired. We also love retirement. We continue to enjoy all Acton has to offer: our library, our rec department, our conservation lands, our fabulous neighborhoods, and yes, our Acton-Boxborough schools. They all combine to make Acton a desirable town in which to live, even when you're retired. We continue to invest in this community. Our home is our most valuable retirement investment. We recognize that its value is directly related to the success and excellence of this school system. Retirement also allows us time to volunteer here in our community, from the food pantry to community supper to neighborhoods and church. We are very involved. Personally, the most important and pleasurable volunteer work I do every week is to be privileged to work with Conant students. Conant is the school where I finished the final 18 years of my 34 years of teaching. I'm in the schools every week. The effects of the pandemic are still being felt in our schools, and yet I see skilled teachers and staff working tirelessly with patience and grace and good humor every single time I am in these buildings.
30 seconds, Mary.
It's uplifting. Your teachers, our teachers, are doing their best in the service of our students and their families. They deserve our support. This override is long overdue. I urge you to vote for our schools and for our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else for public comment? Mr. Kushner, good evening.
Good evening. To be official, Gary Kushner, Boxborough Finance Committee. I'm being repetitive, and I realize that, but please change your guidelines. Last meeting is a good example. The school committee previously put forward a list of potential infrastructure changes to be discussed at a future meeting. During last meeting, there was a discussion about the Conant School MSBA application. A comment was made that closing, mothballing the Conant School is off the table. But why? It hasn't been discussed yet. I've been at every single school committee meeting, with the exception of the Saturday budget. Seems to me, that discussing the MSBA application is premature until there's a valid discussion on the future of the school. Some points to be made include the Acton override, the potential of a Boxborough override, whether renovation of the Conant School is warranted, and if renovated, is it going to have to be closed anyways? And I'm using the term renovated as I was told multiple times by the previous operations team that the building could be renovated, did not need to be replaced. I know you can't answer me per your rules, but Conan should not be off the table until discussed. I'm not saying remove it. I'm just saying it needs to be discussed here, not off someplace else, as part of the infrastructure discussions. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. And I'll provide a point of clarification. I don't think that the committee decided to take the mothballing or closure of a school off the table. The discussion was around whether or not we would submit that school for MSBA core program support for next year. And if my recollection is correct, what we said was we haven't made the discussion yet, but we also didn't want to put the school in the program and then have to go through MSBA without having had that discussion. So that discussion hasn't happened yet. It is planned to happen over the course of next year. So the decision around whether or not to submit for MSBA was made to withhold for next year so that we could have that discussion. So to clarify, there's not been any closed door or behind the scenes discussion around the fate of one of our school buildings. That's definitely something that has to happen out in public with a lot of public input. Thank you. Other public comments?
Hello, my name is Tanish Ghosh, and I'm a junior from the Acton-Boxborough Regional High School. And I'm here on behalf of ResourceForce. And again, we'd like to remind you about the climate resolution we sent last year. And we urge you to vote for and pass the climate resolution. Again, we would like to say we're not asking for action right now, but rather a commitment to action in the future. And I also want to highlight that there has been increased student engagement and letters from students at the high school that have been sent concerning their opinions about climate action. And again, we understand and we recognize the current budget and issues with the budget, but we're not asking for action now, although we're not asking for action now, it's important to make a commitment now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dinesh. And a great highlight of the flex block that Molly spoke of was the letter writing campaign that happened from the resource force that all the school committee members received last week. Any other members of the public wish to make a public comment? This is your only time. Okay, seeing no one else at the microphone, we are going to move on to new business. Recommendation to appoint Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. Oh, it's in such a small font, Peter. I apologize. I'm just getting you back for some of those committee chair and superintendent postings where I was in a smaller picture than you.
That was a requirement I had for Julie.
I'm sure.
So, a few things. One, obviously, we had, quite a long day for a number of our students and staff here. Just to give you a little bit of sense of timeline of that. We started the day, obviously opened, as scheduled. The roads, I drove around. Actually, the roads were in pretty good condition for a winter storm. And so obviously thanks to the town of Acton for that, and town of Boxborough. So just as the high school and junior high students were stepping off the bus, we had a transformer go. That was also the same time the elementary students were getting on the bus, which obviously makes it complicated. You have to kind of continue as planned. Fortunately, the power was restored within about 40 minutes, and we were back up and running. And then at 9:30, a telephone pole went down along Hayward Road that knocked power out to campus for the better part of 5 hours, 6 hours. So, that obviously presents challenges. We tried to get some information from Eversource. There were no updates coming. They hadn't even listed the outage on their map after an hour and a half, so that was challenging. When we did get an update, we had just started lunch for our junior and senior high school students. We made the decision, talking with principals, to let students finish lunch, and then we would dismiss them after lunch to get them home. With elementary school students, it's really challenging once you get elementary school students into the building to then consider a dismissal because you have to make sure that parents are home to receive students. And, we have a lot of parents that work reasonably far away from where we live. So had to really consider that. So we made the choice to hold our elementary school students in school through the end of the day to provide kind of a less chaotic environment for that. That is not easy on school staff, teachers, administrators to work without power. So I just want to, really thank all of them and thank students for the patience because, really having a pretty disrupted day is not enjoyable for anyone. So thank you to everyone for the patience. Few other things. You are, in a few minutes, going to meet a candidate for Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, so I'm not going to talk about that right now. But I also want to announce that we did just recently hire a new athletic director. So James Scanlon has been appointed as the next Director of Athletics for the district. James is the Director of Athletics in Dudley Charlton Regional School District, where he's been since 2020. Prior to that position, James serves as the Director of Athletics at Grafton Public Schools for 3 years. He was also the head athletic trainer at Grafton Public Schools from 2014 up until 2020. He has experience as a faculty lecturer, grad assistant, and athletic trainer at several colleges as well. He has a Master of Science in Athletic Training from Bridgewater State and a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology from the UMass Amherst. So he's going to be starting on July 1st, so we're pleased to welcome him. Want to just go over a few things that are being recognized and celebrated over the course of the month. April 9th and 10th is Eid al-Fitr, or Ramadan. It's a month-long spiritual period of fasting and prayer that commemorates the revelation of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad, according to Muslim tradition. Acton-Boxborough schools are closed on Wednesday, April 10th, and that's a little bit of a change in the calendar. We have not had that holiday come during a school day over the last few years, so we want to make sure people are aware that that's next week. April 15th is Patriots' Day, and that's a state holiday commemorating the first battle of the American Revolution on April 19th, 1775. Patriots' Day occurs annually on the third Monday of April, and we also do not have school that day because it's the first day of our April vacation week. April 22nd to April 30th is Passover. And that is one of ancient Israel's 3 major pilgrimage festivals and commemorates the exodus from Egypt. Passover is one of the most beloved of all the Jewish holidays. So we have more information going out to families on the different holidays, but I just wanted to highlight those 3 things because they're coming up in our calendar. I want to do a huge congratulations to our Acton-Boxborough speech and debate team who placed second as a school in Massachusetts. So congratulations to them. As we send things out to families, we'll also recognize a number of the individual students who won some different awards. So congratulations to that team. You know, Diksha actually spoke to this a little bit earlier, but I had an opportunity to go to the Flex Block and attend a number of their seminars that were going on at the high school. What an absolutely fantastic activity day that was, just as a way of building some community in the high school, a way of celebrating some of the students' interests around social justice. There were student-led workshops, there were faculty-led workshops, and really just a nice celebration of the cultures of the school and all of the different interests of our students. So thank you to everyone who helped organize that. We had also National Honor Society induction this week, so congratulations to all of our students who qualified for and were accepted into National Honor Society. Project graduation is coming up, and I've talked about this before, but that is an absolutely wonderful community event that's held every year for our high school graduating seniors to be able to celebrate safely. They are in need of some additional volunteer slots, so I don't know if anyone on the committee is interested, but that's a wonderful way to get to kind of be into the schools, see what's going on, give back to the community. We will also be sending that out, so hopefully parents district-wide can pay it forward. We also have launched our Spring Seniors Read program with the Acton and Boxborough senior centers. So a huge thank you to them, but we have a couple of nice pictures that we took from both Miriam and Blanchard of some of our seniors in classrooms, but it's been a wonderful way to connect kind of the broader community into our schools and our students and help bridge some of those kind of age gaps that people can perceive and make sure that our students have an opportunity to learn from our seniors and our seniors also have an opportunity to learn from our students because there's a lot to give both ways. And finally, Vice Chair Rebecca Wilson and I will be hosting a community coffee on Saturday, April 27th at 9:00 a.m. at KJ's Cafe in Acton. So we invite all the members of the community to come out and ask us questions about things that happen in the schools, but in particular the FY25 budget. So thank you, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for filling in for me, Becca. All right. Now, I believe we're on to new business, where, Peter, you're going to make a recommendation to appoint an assistant superintendent for teaching and learning.
Absolutely. So I'll invite Gabby up to the table here. So there's a memo in your packet, but I'll give just a brief overview. So Gabrielle Abrams is currently the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment for the Medway Public Schools, a role she's held since 2015. She was previously the Instructional Leadership Director and Executive Director for the Marlborough Public Schools from 2011 to 2015. In Marlborough, she also served as an Assistant Principal at the high school and an Instructional Coach for grades 4 through 7. Gabby taught grades 5 through 8 in Bristol, New Hampshire. She's currently a doctoral candidate, and actually, I believe it's now Dr. Abrams, correct?
Officially.
Yep.
Yes.
Who defended your dissertation, so
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
At Boston College, and she has a master's from Framingham State and a Bachelor of Arts from Hofstra University. So her complete resume and cover letter were in the packet for you to be able to review. We had an absolutely fantastic search team. I want to thank Andrew. I want to thank all the members of the search team. We had, a variety of roles and responsibilities from the district. We had some parent engagement on the search team. We also had, obviously, teachers, educators at all levels, department heads, directors, coaches, instructional support specialists, really involved in that process to be able to forward 3 finalists. We invited all 3 finalists in for full days. I know some of you had an opportunity to participate in some of the meetings with finalists along the way, so thank you for taking the time to be able to do that. And over the course of the day and through checking references, it was just really clear that I think Gabby's going to be a wonderful fit here at AB. She really rose to the top, not only for her experience, but kind of the breadth of knowledge she brought across all 3 levels of the school district, and the variety of roles that she held fit really well with the goals that we have as a school district, particularly, having been an instructional coach, being able to bring that firsthand knowledge of being a classroom teacher and instructional coach, working at, elementary grades, at middle schools, at high schools. Really just that breadth of experience is so valuable to be able to bring to a lens of an assistant superintendent. So we're really pleased to welcome Gabby. I'll let her introduce herself if I didn't just say all of it. And then, an opportunity for you to ask some questions. And we are seeking a vote to ask you to appoint. I gave you some of the legal language around why the school committee appoints an assistant superintendent. That's in the memo. I won't go into all of that, but turn it over to you, Gabby.
Great. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for that great introduction, Peter. It's really humbling and such an honor to be here. What a professional, rich process that I experienced over the last couple of weeks in Acton-Boxborough. It's really exciting for me to look to my next stage of learning and see those opportunities here in this community. As Peter highlighted, I am 26 years into being an educator and a leader. I often say that this is my 26th first year in education because every year has been incredibly different and challenging and wonderful and rich, and this is my happy place. My work is incredibly important to me because of the opportunities that schools provided for me as a kid. They were my safe place to fall. They were the place that allowed me to see the potential and worthiness that was inside. And so when I stepped back and realized that that was the case, I just went full throttle, and so have been doing so for the last 26 years. And I'm just really excited to be able to be forwarded to you to join this team. I know it's during an incredibly complex time for your community, and also really everywhere, but certainly especially for your community fiscally. I think there's so many points of pride in this community, and it's really an honor to consider myself a part of a team to go from strength to strength, which is what I see this community being able to do. You're incredibly mission-focused. There's so many things to be proud of with the work that you have done and that you anticipate doing, even in these challenging fiscal times. And so it's really an honor to be here. And thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Abrams? Becca?
I don't have any questions, but I think, it's fabulous that you have such a diversity of experience, and as a fellow Framingham State grad, I can't help but be excited that you're joining us.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that very much.
Anybody else? All right, then I will accept a motion to appoint Dr. Gabrielle Abrams as the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning effective July 1st, 2024, pending successful contract negotiations with the Superintendents of Schools.
Moved. Second.
All right, that was Andrew with the motion and Tori with the second. All of those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, so we have to vamp for 4 minutes because we have a public hearing around school choice. So give me just 1 second because I'm going to ask my superintendent something. Okay.
I think Andrew's going to sing.
Sing? It's 3 minutes now, Andrew. All right, so I'll give everybody a heads up. I will broadcast forward what we're planning on doing this evening. So following our school choice hearing, we will welcome the chair and vice chair of the Acton Finance Committee to share with us the Finance Committee point of view. We will be cutting the district goal number 2 presentation this evening because we had some of our educators who were involved in the power outage and wanted to give them a little bit of a rest this evening. So we're going to postpone that until later. And then we'll go through our standard report of school committee communication goal updates, ALG updates, health insurance trust, policy, budget updates, and then we'll go through our consent agenda items. While we're here, and I'm still trying to vamp for time, I will share that you all have on your calendar a meeting for April 25th, a school committee meeting for April 25th. Peter and I decided that you all did such a great job that we are going to cancel that meeting. So feel free to strike April 25th from your calendars. We will not be meeting on a school committee meeting that evening, but we will be meeting on May 2nd. So there will be a school committee meeting on May 2nd, no school committee meeting on April 25th.
Policy Sub will be meeting on the morning of April 25th. Just making sure that we don't strike that from our calendars. Thank you.
It's not April Fool's, right?
No, and it's not April Fool's. Yes, I'll just remind everybody again that there is a community coffee on April 27th at KJ's Cafe. Rebecca has volunteered to attend. I may attend because my plans keep changing, but thank you for filling in. And now we have 1 minute left before we go to the school choice hearing. I'm done. I've got nothing else. I'm sorry.
Can I say something about project graduation?
Please.
Since there's a minute left, I'll talk about project graduation. I did it last year. It was awesome, and I signed up again this year, and I know Leela might be joining me. I know other people from other committees around town are joining. I highly recommend you do it. It's just so much fun to see these kids off, into the sunset on their journeys, and just sort of remember also how it felt to be at AB.
And am I correct that to be able to volunteer for that, you do have to go through the standard CORI process? Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons to sign up in advance, and we're putting the push on now for folks who may not have gone through this before, is that you do need to have your CORI background check done before you can actually participate in the program. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors to sign up for project graduation. Also remind them that on April 30th, there is a ballot vote, including the override, and on May 6th, there's an annual town meeting in the town of Acton, and on May 13th, there's an annual town meeting in the town of Boxborough. You do not need to be in attendance in person to vote on the 30th of April. That ballot vote you can do like any other ballot vote, which means that you can vote early or vote by mail, but for the 2 annual town meetings, you do have to be in attendance in the meeting at that time to make those votes. And with that, I will note the hour and the presence of a quorum and call the FY25 Acton-Boxborough Regional School District, Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education School Choice Program to order. Andrew, thank you for patiently waiting up there. Would you mind describing the recommended motion to remain withdrawn from the program?
Yeah, happy to. So good evening, everybody. You have in your packets a memo regarding the annual vote regarding school choice. Just to be clear for all of you and also for audience members and those at home, When we refer to school choice, we're referring to the state school choice program. I think here in Acton, because our elementary placement is often referred to as school choice, when actually it's open enrollment, but often referred to as school choice, we are not voting on our Acton-Boxborough enrollment process. It's school choice at the state level is really a program where school districts can elect on an annual basis to participate in a program where students who reside outside of a particular school district could apply to be a student at a school district that is participating in the choice program. And if and when a school district chooses to accept students from other towns and municipalities, the incentive, if you will, is $5,000 from the state to then accept those students. So for some, the calculus works where if they are looking for a source of revenue and they feel that they have the space to accommodate, then that's something that they could consider. And so we used to do that for a number of years, and then finally in 2021, we elected to withdraw from the program and have continued to remain withdrawn ever since. Considerations of class size, staffing, and other things like that. We still have a few students remaining because part of the policy is about allowing siblings of school choice admits to participate, and so we still have a number who were grandfathered in, but once they are graduate from the district or leave of their own choice, then we would not have any remaining, assuming that we remain withdrawn. We did, if you recall, talk a little bit about entertaining re-entering earlier this year as we were trying to be creative and thoughtful around budget. And as much as it did entertain the idea, as much as it did offer the possibility of additional revenue, the more we learn just about the features and the parameters of accepting students, it does come with various financial risks around the cost of services that may accompany the students who elect to join us. And so it really, in reality, we've sort of felt, and I think there was some consensus around this, that the risks did not sort of justify, or the benefits did not justify the risks that were also involved. So we would recommend again that we remain withdrawn. So just another clarification, all schools every year, it's not an opt-in, we have to actively opt out. So this is the point in the year where if we continue to say, yep, we're going to respectfully decline to participate, this is where you would do that. The language for that motion is at the bottom of the memo, so if somebody's willing to if that's, the will of the committee, then I would ask you to read aloud that motion and then move forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Andrew. And to clarify, what we will do is we will have questions from the committee. Because this is a public hearing, we'll open up for questions from the public.
Got it.
Then we'll adjourn the public hearing, and then the motion that is in your memo can be read. And the only reason I know that is because somebody who helps me with my order of operations here wrote that down in my memo.
Great.
So any questions or comments from the committee? Any questions or comments from the public regarding school choice program? Gary?
I don't think I need to tell you my name. You're making the right decision. Prior to regionalization between Acton and Boxborough, Blanchard used to participate in school choice, and it's good money up front, and it hurts at the back end. It really takes a long time to get out of the program, so you're making the right choice.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from the public? From the committee? All right. As there is no more discussion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the hearing.
So moved. Second.
So that was Leela with the motion and Tori with the second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That is unanimous. And would someone like to make the motion that is at the bottom of the memo?
I move that the Acton-Boxborough Regional School Committee moves to remain withdrawn from the school choice program due to class size and space limitations. Existing school choice students will remain through graduation. Second.
Again, Leela with the motion and Tori with the second. All of those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's also unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, I am happy to welcome up Christi Andersen, the chair, and Jason Cole, the vice chair of the Acton Finance Committee, to share the Acton Finance Committee point of view. Peter is going to bring up your slides.
Hi, everyone. I haven't done this in front of you all before. If you've been around doing this, you know we make this presentation generally much earlier in the process, but because of the override this year, it's all a little backwards. And some of what I'm going to talk about is why we have the override, and you'll see the two different budgets going on here. Basic level here, spending is predicted to outpace revenue, as you all know for fiscal year 25. There are also no turnbacks projected for the school or the town. We have some very expensive capital projects coming entirely separate from what the school has told us. This is just in the town of Acton. And the same things that are driving the pain that the school has encountered, inflation, et cetera, really hurting the taxpayers too. And we're looking right now, as you all know, at an operational override. I'm going to mostly skip this because I assume you all know how Prop 2.5 works. The basic level of it is that we're looking at fiscal years 25, 26, and 27 far exceeding revenues. We are looking at them exceeding revenues even if the override does pass, but the money coming in just does not match up with what we need to operate. At this point, this is where I point out to anyone in the audience who's listening that it's actually normal. Prop 2.5 was not designed to be a level that can be operated at forever. It's designed to force us to periodically look at what we're spending on. You're going to, at some point, growth and 2.5% increase in taxes every year is going to exceed your needs. And so it forces the community to come together and say, what are we actually spending on? Is this a time to look at our legacy programs and consider getting rid of them? Are our ideals aligned with where our money is going? So it's not a problem that we've gotten here. It's actually a very good thing, good part of the process, but we got here a little faster than is really beneficial for getting through the process, explaining to everyone. Ideally, I don't know how much you all have thought about it. We on FinCom knew an override was coming. We just thought it was going to be next year, not this one. So it's really been sped up. So anyone out there listening who's feeling sort of freaked out about this, it's not that it wasn't going to happen. It's just it came on rather suddenly and because of large expenses coming in. And I am missing a page. Okay. So here's Budget A is if the override passes. That's why you see if you look, the yellow line is revenues, and there's a big jump up between fiscal years 24 and 25. You'll see even with that going into fiscal year 26, there's a $1.1 million shortfall in difference between projected revenues and expenses, and then $1.8 million in fiscal year 27. Those are numbers that are entirely closable in the ALG process. We do that sort of gap just about every year. 1.8 is getting a little high, but that's not anything to worry about. However, this is Budget B. This is if the override doesn't pass. And I'll get a little more into why it's happening, but you'll look at fiscal years 26 and 27 are upwards of $2 million. Those are really hard to close. And so we're going to be looking at needing to cut further expenses, further services, et cetera. If this override doesn't happen, this isn't a question of does the override pass this year and then we walk away. If the override does not pass this year, we're going to need another one more or less immediately. It's going to keep having to happen. So everyone prepare your good arguments if it doesn't pass, because we're going to need to do a lot of public education on that front. Give you a sense of where Acton's budget stands in terms of spending. We've highlighted here 3 sources of expenses that we don't have control over. There is the Minuteman assessment, the Middlesex Retirement Assessment, and the Health Insurance Trust. Those are bills that are just handed to us. Then there's that whole green area, which is what we have to work with, ish. And there are things like electricity, contracts for what we get from you, and then contracts for the various firefighters, et cetera. We have a bunch of unions in town. So that green bar is all that we pay for being members in Acton-Boxborough and everything else we do to run the town. You'll notice even with the, we're looking at Budget A here, even with the override, there has to be a decrease in spending at some level in fiscal year 26 just because of growth. on expenses. That, again, these are ones we have no control over. On Budget B, that's even worse. And this, again, drives at why an override is especially necessary. One thing to look at here also with the expenses going down, the money we have to work with, those green bars are much shorter than back on Budget A. There are things that are getting delayed in all of this. Acton has buildings that need maintenance. They have sidewalks that need maintenance. They have a bunch of things that need to happen that can only be pushed out for so long. So while an override gets pushed out, it's just going to push up the need for one, that the scope of it even more. And I don't think anyone wants to see a larger than what we're at any one time right now. Our basic overview of our reserve policy, as you might have heard, based on Department of Revenue guidance in the state, we like to keep the free cash floor for the town at 3% of total spending. So that's every assessment we have, including the AB assessment. So that's a fairly large number. We also would really, really, really like you all to get up to your floor of 3% on E&D. We are happy that you're not using it. Outside of this, there are also stabilization funds that both the town and the district have for capital projects, and there are other types of reserves to maintain fiscal health. As you all know, we have really good bond rating. That's an important thing to keep having as we have large projects coming up. It saved us a ton of money in the borrowing for the school. We need to achieve those floors and stay at least at them. So just longer term view, that is an important thing. Here are the actual levels of the reserves for the town and the school district, and you don't need those right now. Important to note, however, that for budgets A and B, we are very happy to see that you're not using A&D money in either one of them. Thank you. Going into capital projects, this is a very hard to read list from the town's capital improvement plan of proposed projects going out over the next 5 years. None of these are selected to be done. This is just to give you a scope of what the town sees as mostly being necessary. Even the ones that look like they might be want-to-haves are safety related, like there's significant sidewalk project on there. And I've heard some very good arguments for why that matters for people to be safer walking around. So there's a lot of money that needs to be sent, and as I said, many of these cannot be put off for very long, specifically the aerial ladder truck, things like that. These are not the town being frivolous in any way with money, but this is a scope of the problems we're looking into when dealing with any sort of budgeting across both entities. Here's a map of the current excluded debt. Excluded debt for 5-second primer is what we pay on top of our tax assessment for your property taxes. It's for a large capital borrowing. That payment goes away the second the mortgage, as I think of it, is paid off. So as you can see, we just dropped off one, and in fiscal year 29, we will finally finished paying off the junior high, senior high updates debt, and we'll be back to about where we were before we started building the boardwalk campus. However, Acton has a large DPW project coming. It's going to cost a lot of money, and it's coming in the next few years. So anything that's big happening needs to have this sort of in the corner of your eye budgetarily coming when thinking about taxpayers' wallets. At this point in time, unsurprisingly, we recommend not taking on any new excluded debt. This is less of an issue now that the select board has not taken on doing the proposed sidewalk debt exclusion when we wrote these slides. We're also specifically asking that town look at the DPW project and try to keep it as limited to necessary as possible. Kind of can't imagine bells and whistles for a DPW project, but we want to make sure they're not in there. As you can see here, tax bills have been going up, unsurprisingly. These jumps are for a variety of reasons that have not caused any problems. Some of them is just mathematical, but it has averaged out to about a $490 per year tax bill increase for people, which is what it would be next year regardless. The question with the override is how much above that people are going to have. Big picture, people are hurting. Healthcare costs, which is part of what's driving here, are up for everyone. A lot of wage growth hasn't kept up. I remember at Budget Saturday, someone stood up and said, everyone should be getting raises that have been keeping up with inflation. I was sitting there shaking my head going, we haven't gotten those. We've been happy with what we've gotten, but it hasn't kept up with inflation. Definitely not. Cost of having a home is increasing. Costs for our renters are increasing. And in the town of Acton, we're having, the water district is doing upgrades for the PFAS treatment. That is going to hit everyone's bill. This is outside of tax bills, and there are also sewer treatment facility repairs. That's only a part of town, but these will significantly hit people living around here. Again, looking here at the numbers, just the revenue increase will not cover the fixed cost increase I showed you a whole bunch of slides ago. So at this point, we really want to encourage, even with the override, there is a shortfall here going into next year. It's time to look at cost cutting. It's something that FinCom brings up every year and largely gets ignored about, but we would really love to see town, district, and any other people come together and think about taking a long-term look. You all have been. We're hearing a lot of indications from the school committee that you're looking towards are there any fundamental changes we can make? Can we realign our cost structures in a way that will be sustainable for a long time? Because another override's coming eventually, but we'd like to hold it off as long as possible. So please take that up, maintain some momentum in working on that going forward. This is just a general view of what has happened. I would really like to point out here that we all are to some degree victims of your success. The school district and the town have done a very good job over the last 2 years keeping the assessment increases for Acton to a very sustainable level. And just being sideswiped by the special ed and the health insurance and a few other unavoidable expenses this year, that put us into a sudden need. So I want to make sure everyone who's listening knows we didn't get here because of negligence. We partially got here because of doing the right thing. And it's really just time for an override, but we're very appreciative of everything that has been done to hold off getting here as long as we have. So based on all this, we support an operational override of $6.6 million in conjunction, as I've said, with other cost savings measures. We recommend spending $5.4 million of that in fiscal year 25, leaving the rest in part to help smooth out the tax bills, the tax increase over time, but still get the towns what they've needed. We have the ALG process has come up with using some of the town's free cash, still staying above the floor, but spending more of it than we would in order to offset some of the tax bill increase for town taxpayers. However, we can't just have that money go away, so taking some of it back, replenishing it some. I'm doing a horrible job explaining this, and I will let Jason fix it later, but basically balancing out that need with the taxes, tax increase next year. And again, we recommend a task force. Please, let's convince everyone, let everyone be a part of the discussion of how we can avoid getting to these situations. I think the town and the school have done a good job managing to get here. There are things that can be adjusted for everyone, but I think the biggest failure has been in public education and keeping people part of the discussion. It's really hard. I've been around this block enough times to know that people are only interested once there's a problem, but as much as we can foster general discussion, that would be great. I believe that's everything I have to say.
If I could just add a couple of things. Do not be surprised if taxpayers come up to you in the next couple of weeks and go, what, there's going to be an override this year? It's going to happen. I also want to say that a lot of the slides in this presentation were probably completely repetitive to you because this point of view goes to as wide an audience as we can possibly get. So we were trying to make this also for a public side, on the public side. As for you asked me to comment on the replenishing. Okay, right. So
One of the pushbacks that we've received in public comment at the Finance Committee is, why do we have a $6.6 million override if you're only going to have a $5.4 million increase over the next year? Why not just cut the override down to 5.4? Why not give the $6.6 million away all at the same time? And while Christi mentioned it, I want to take one more stab at trying to say, we are trying to make sure that this step function is not as painful as it could be. Yes, inflation was running at 0 for a very long time, and that's how we were able to manage to live within Prop 2.5. Once things got ugly in the form of inflation and all of a sudden we overran our budgets, what we're trying not to do is we're trying not to correct for everything in one fiscal year, because that would be north of $1,400 to $1,500 average tax increase for every tax entity, for every taxpayer in Acton. So while we're trying to provide as much money as we feel is feasible, which is where the $5.4 million came in, and we do appreciate the 3 rounds of cost cutting and budget slimming that we all, I was in the room for 2 of them, that we all sat through for this. The purpose here is that we'll be able to do $5.4 million right from the start. The taxpayers will not even have to pay the full $5.4 million right from the start, because we're pulling the reserves to the floor. This does leave some money in unused tax levy capacity for the upcoming years. I beg you not to use it all in 1 year, but if you have to, you have to, and we'll go through the regular ALG process to see if that is the only method to move forward. But this does allow for the taxpayer not to pay for everything all at once. This also does allow you to make a multi-year projection so that you can see what you can potentially squeeze aside for 1 more year right from the start while not having to exit immediately. So we hope that this is the best compromise that we can get to between all of the different desires, the desire to have every possible good project you can possibly think of, whether it be capital or educational or elsewise, while at the same time not completely potentially overrunning the capacity of the taxpayer to pay, and then we would run the risk of getting no increase at all. So we all appreciate this has been a very difficult year. The entire committee has voted to recommend the override this year, and we hope for a very successful outcome on the 30th. Thank you. We'll be happy to answer any questions. If you have any curiosities about how the mind of the FinCom is thinking.
Thank you, Christi. Thank you, Jason. Questions from the committee? Tori.
Not actually a question, because I feel like you have all spent a lot of time trying to make me smarter this year, so thank you for all those efforts. But a comment, I appreciated seeing this for the first time, and the slide where you showed the difference between the A budget and the B budget and the gaps that remain in the out years and how steeply they grow if we don't pass the override this year. That, to me, we all need to understand that slide. That should be our bottom line for the elevator speech when somebody asks you, why do we need to do this? We are resetting the baseline because there's not enough money based on the fixed costs, and if we don't do it now, this doesn't go away. So thank you for that visual. I think that's really powerful, and I appreciate it.
I also don't have a question because I know that, us and Tori have spent a lot of time together. And I just want to say, I really appreciate how the process has been through ALG, but also, having FinCom members come to the budget sub-meeting. It feels really collaborative, but also people are not afraid to speak strongly about how they feel, to push for what's best for everybody in the community. And I hear you, Christi, about the transparency issue. That, before I joined the committee, I was thinking, oh, it'll be so easy to get everybody to hear what we're trying to say. But it's constant work to try to reach people where they're at and continue these conversations. And I think we've all done a really good job about that, and I hope we continue that next year. I know we're all very committed to, looking deeply into those structural changes and make sure that we're looking at a sustainable budgeting process going forward, to sort of keep and hold that community support. One thing that I did maybe want to make a comment on is I wonder if the task force that we end up creating, because there'll be members that are also, this is sort of like representative also of ALG minus Minuteman, sort of like maybe who would we pick different people to go so we get some different sort of perspectives? Is there anybody else that we could maybe add into that process to maybe cast a wider net? But I totally agree that this is something that is really important and should be done ASAP.
There have been task force like this in the past.
But this is also the time to put forward what you want and how you want the task force to be done, because the task force is not a standing body. This is something that is done on as ad hoc needed basis. So definitely if you don't want the same two people who have to go to ALG meetings Monday mornings at 7:30, if you want to spread the love around, by all means, please do put forward the people that you wish to, because we all have communications about it.
Well, and we want taxpayers and other things. I'm trying to think, the people I know who've mentioned stuff like this, I believe Diane Baum was one of them, and Mike Gowing, people who've been paying attention to this stuff since previous overrides are good people to talk to just about the processes, so we're not reinventing it.
And any other former school committee members who might be interested?
Yeah, I think, getting people who have years of experience, not that I'm calling you old, John, that sort of have seen a lot and can, bring some of that to this task force would be fabulous. Get people that are not on committees currently would be great. And this is not a plug to say, I'm not willing to put in more work, but I know that, I can only speak for myself at times, and it would be good to make sure that everybody's heard and part of that process.
Lakshmi.
Is this task force just for Acton?
This task force that you're recommending is one that is for the town of Acton.
I am recommending one for Acton.
Yep.
I recognize that there are budgetary issues for the district that are very tightly together with Boxborough, but given that we are talking about Acton-specific expenses here, I think they should be kept separate, and the school can have a separate force with Boxborough.
Thank you.
And we have agreed that we're setting up a task force inside the school community to look at some of our structural items. And my guess is that following next year in Boxborough, there's very likely going to be a task force in Boxborough to look at similar challenges as well. So we'll be full of task forces.
Why next year, though? Why can't it be?
There could be one in Boxborough starting now. I think if you want to recommend that, you can speak to the Finance Committee and the Select Board in Boxborough and see if they want to start thinking about that now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just have a question. So, what's the difference between the ALG group and the task force? Is it separate, or too many groups?
Understand that you can definitely kill things by committee, understood. But ALG has a very difficult remit. ALG requires complete consensus, which getting 10 people to be in complete agreement on is no easy task, especially when some people on the committee are sometimes more ornery than others. The purpose of a task force is to try and take a multi-year holistic view of this with people who are not necessarily just on committees. Try and get a much more diverse group of points of view into this, so that we don't ever end up in a situation where we stand up and say the committees have decided that this is what we're going to do. We want to make sure that the entire community has had a chance to weigh in on it, because some people are more interested in sidewalks than others. Some people are more interested in making sure we replace the aerial ladder truck that's going to take 3 years to get delivered, and some people only care about making sure that the two major school appropriations are fed constantly. You can't do this in a piecemeal matter. One of the things that my mentor on the Finance Committee is fond of saying is that the residents of Acton only receive a single tax bill. So we need to make sure, if we were to say to you, there's going to be a $30, $40, $50 million DPW building, and that's going to starve all capital money for the school district for the next 5 years, probably not going to be very well received by the school committee. Similarly, if you came back and said, we just finished the Boardwalk campus, time to move on for a whole nother twin building over by Conan, and that's going to starve out all possible capital money from the town of Acton, that's not going to go over well with the community either. So the purpose of this is to make sure that it is not just a committee it's not just the 10 people on the ALG, but that it's the entire community saying, as a community, these are where we want to slice and dice our dollars for the next 5 to 10 years. And we want to make sure that it's a longer-term point of view, because one of the things that I worry about is school committee members have a 3-year term. Select board members have a 3-year term. Finance committee members usually get to stay until they get run out of town on a rail. So we want to make sure we take away the short-term nature of this and have it be not just the committee side. Sorry, long answer. Hope that answered your question.
Task force gets to focus on details that don't work at the ALG level. ALG is really about just a much higher level negotiation and getting to all different points of view, reaching hopefully a affordable tax bill, or the most affordable in the needs of the current situation. Whereas a task force can really look at, okay, how does this district handle things in different ways? How does this town manage? One thing they were looking at was, do we do curbside trash pickup? Things like that would be in the purview of a task force and are far outside of what we want ALG to be doing.
Staying on the task force topic quickly and recognizing that I'm not a resident of Acton, but something that I know is also affecting the town of Boxborough, and I might recommend adding to part of the scope for the task force, is not just cost savings, but also other opportunities for revenue generation. How can you grow your community in a way that's suitable to your community, but also recognizing that new growth is a big part of how you can continue to stem the tide of having to do another override and putting that burden higher. So I think that a task force is a great idea. I would just recommend as the consensus comes together around what the goal is for that task force, that we look at both sides of the balance sheet to make sure that we're getting as much out of what we've got in town as possible.
Yeah, that's a great idea, not just spending.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Lakshmi?
Does the task force has to start, that conversation has to start with the select board? Is that what it is? Who sets up the task force?
It's being discussed now. It's being
Yeah,
formulated now.
It's not a specific, set up by a specific area thing, because the school district is its own government. The town of Acton is its own government, and the town of Boxborough is. We don't have any control over what either groups do, so we're going to need to come up with some sort of consensus in the separate communities to form groups for this. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah?
I would certainly also volunteer school leadership to do that as well.
Thank you.
Excellent. Christi, Jason, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming to speak to the committee. Leave it open. It's always bad when that thing gets closed. Okay, moving on. As I mentioned, we are going to be skipping this evening the discussion of District Goal number 2. We're going to come back to that at a future meeting. So we're on to our ongoing business, which first up is the school committee communication goal update. Anybody doing office hours have any updates from their office hours? Shen?
So I had an office hour in the town hall last Friday. Jason Cole, the vice chair of Acton FinCom, actually graciously came and we were planning on educating the community, but it was just the two of us. So please come. We'll be there every Friday at from 10 to 12 at Acton Town Hall, room 126.
Thank you.
I actually did Thursday's office hours at the Sargent Library and made some lovely crafts with the kids that were there. I have taken up all of the space in my refrigerator now, and there are a number of not yet eligible voters who are ready to
Totally
go
behind
for
you.
it. Yeah.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
I know that there was some posting of this online and maybe other places, but there's going to be a forum at the library next Thursday, the 11th at 6:45. Tori and I are going to be there to represent the school committee. We have Acton FinCom representatives, somebody from HIT and somebody from the select board. And together we're going to sort of do a little presentation and also answer questions. So anybody who wants to and, works 9 to 5 and hasn't been able to attend some of these office hours, please come. Please ask us questions. Please give us your complaints and concerns. We want to talk with you.
Leila.
A student group reached out to me to ask questions about the override, and so I went to the high school to talk to them, and it was fun. They have some really thoughtful questions that mirror actually a lot of what we're hearing in the community, and so I just want to say, A, we have some really thoughtful students, and B, happy to continue having these conversations if other folks want to reach out.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Tori?
I will second Leila's comment there on our students being not only thoughtful, but some of the best questions I've been asked have been by high school students. In my case, I got to talk to a scout group doing their citizenship in the community merit badge. And so they grilled me quite thoroughly for almost 2 hours. I was shocked, and their questions, yeah, top notch. They're critical thinkers. They are asking good questions, and none of them are 18 yet. So hopefully they shared this with somebody who can vote.
Nice, thank you. Anybody else with updates? All right, moving on to subcommittee and member reports. I'm going to take this a bit out of order, and I'm going to go through the ALG, the policy, and the budget, and then we'll end with the HIT update, since there'll be probably some discussion around that. So, Rebecca, are you giving the report on ALG?
I was actually going to hand it off to Tori because I had to leave the meeting early.
ALG met March 25th at 7:30 a.m. in room 204 at Acton Town Hall and virtually via Zoom. Topics discussed included a fiscal year 24 update, a fiscal year 25 preliminary budget projections, a review of the multi-year financial model, and details of the override. Both the town and the district are closely monitoring revenues and expenses and believe they are on track to stay within the fiscal year 24 budget, although Andrew may have more updates for us. For fiscal year 25, both entities have voted to adopt their A budgets. Looking at fiscal year 26 and beyond, members discussed reflecting the actual need in the operating budgets, which for fiscal year 26 will be 3.75 for both the district and the town. So this is an update to what we've done in the past. As with previous ALG models and annual town meeting warrants, this results in a deficit when compared with projected revenues and reflects the difficult work that both town and district conduct every year in order to bring the operating budgets into line with Proposition 2.5. The next ALG meeting will be Wednesday, May 1st at 7:30 a.m. in room 204 at Acton Town Hall and virtually via Zoom.
Thank you. Policy Subcommittee, Liz.
All right, the Policy Subcommittee met on Thursday, March 28th at 7:30 a.m. via Zoom. We were pleased to enter into a productive discussion with our energy manager, Kate Crosby, on ways that we can be responsive and thoughtful about the many requests we have had from our student resource force. While a resolution was initially proposed by the students, we would like to lay out a more detailed plan for how our district can decarbonize and what the timeline for such a plan would be. We also decided to add an additional meeting, so our next meeting will be on Thursday, April 11th at 7:30 a.m. via Zoom to continue that discussion and also start brainstorming a policy for the district in relation to the appropriate use of AI in the classroom.
Go ahead, Leila.
And if you're on budget or capital, we might be coming to a meeting near you to talk about how it may impact those subcommittees, potentially, if they're meeting.
Great. Budget Sub, Rebecca.
Budget. The Budget Sub met on April 1st at 5:30 p.m. on Zoom and discussed updates, including the HIT one we'll be hearing some more about in a bit. We also discussed what to focus on for town meeting and how to split the work of preparing a preliminary presentation outline for discussion at our next meeting. We are rocketing toward the finish line, April 30th, where we will find out how the community will vote on the override issue. To override or not to override, that is the question before us. The community must come together and decide if it is nobler in the mind to suffer, or if we should band together and fight for a better future for our students. I personally hope the override prevails, not because I want to see more tax revenue squeezed from my neighbors and myself, but because I recognize the impossible position we are all in with Prop 2.5. We all want what is best for our kids. We all want what is best for our neighbors, and we all want what is best for our community. And in my humble opinion, what's best for everyone is to support the proposed override. Our next budget sub-meeting will be on April 22nd at 5:30 p.m. on Zoom, and we will continue to work on our town meeting presentation. Please continue to reach out through email, attend our listening events, and make your voice heard.
Thank you for that literary interpretation of the last budget subcommittee meeting. And before we go over to Health Insurance Trust, I'll just share that this Monday, Lakshmi and I joined the joint PTSO meeting. It was great to hear from all the PTOs and PTFs and PTSOs. A lot of them are planning their spring fundraisers, so lots of fundraisers going on, lots of really fun activities for each of those school communities. And then as Peter mentioned, a big shout out for volunteers for Project Graduation. Health Insurance Trust update, Andrew.
This feels a little clickbaity. I hope we live up to the hype. Health Insurance Trust met on March 28th, in 2024, and discussed the current state of the trust, how the two entities, the town and the district, may remove themselves from the trust. And as you've seen in the packet, Peter has provided a memo that will express some of the involving information. I'd like to cede my time in this update to him to review the information that he has in the memo and to talk about our next steps. So, hand to you, Peter.
Thanks, Andrew. So, I'll cut to the chase. I have some really significant concerns that are new to the future of HIT. We received an update from Gallagher where, after, 4 or 5 months of fairly stable health insurance claims, claims for February came in $720,000 above projection again. So we ended up with another, $2.2 million month of claims. What was really concerning about that is that left HIT with a total cash balance of $60,000. The next month's claims are $1.5 million if we come in as projected. We did receive, right after the treasurer had done the report, about $255,000 of a stop-loss insurance payment. So that brought the effective balance probably to $315,000. But that's not enough money to pay future claims out. The chair did request that the town and school district prepay premiums through the end of the year. We're currently working on that. Sherry, I don't know if we've already transmitted those, but we're working on getting there. We do want to see something in writing from HIT requesting that, or at least from the chair, just so we have something to pay against.
I did talk to Melissa about that, and she said it would actually have to be an official vote from HIT if they really wanted to do it, and they didn't make that vote the other day.
Okay.
So we can't do it yet.
All right, let's get word out to Steve Noon, and we can make sure they get that vote. I copied the table that I thought was most pertinent from Gallagher's report for you, just so you could see how claims were projecting now based on last year. Right now, we're about 20% over benchmark from last year, which is a really significant number. I am concerned, I'll be honest, we have not yet seen a cash flow report as part of HIT, and we don't have a cash flow projection through the end of the school year. I actually volunteered the district to undertake to try and create a model for that. I think we're probably going to have to use, a range of potential outcomes, one being what happens if claims level off back to, benchmark, what happens if we continue at 20% over, and what happens if we actually see another year-end spike in claims and we end up more than 20% over benchmark. I do have some concerns, though, about HIT making it through the end of this fiscal year and having enough money, and we're clearly, as a district, not in a position to have more reserves to put toward HIT. As we've brainstormed this out internally, I think, there are a few levers that we have left to pull. We obviously had $600,000 in a contingency fund for next year, but we can't use that until July 1. I am worried that we're going to need at least that, and we're trying to get projection calculations from Gallagher over what we might need to carry for the run out. The early numbers, and these are not verified by Gallagher, is that those numbers could actually exceed what we've budgeted in that contingency account. So we're trying to really nail that down right now. My thought is, we might reach a point during FY24 where we don't have more money to give to HIT in the current fiscal year. And it might be that we have to wait for FY25 to tick as of July 1. And then in the worst case scenario, and I really do not want to go down this path, but in the worst case scenario, we do have, the OPEB trust where we could, again, request reimbursement for the current year's expenses at the beginning of FY25. That is a bad idea, just waiting for a place to happen, to quote, a TV series. But if that's all we have left, then that's what we have left. I wish I was giving you a better projection, and I wish, quite honestly, we could end right now, but we can't. Which will lead me into the second piece of this, which is, the process for how we're going to have to close HIT down. We had previously taken a vote to withdraw from HIT effective July 1st. We had both the town and schools attorneys attend the HIT meeting to actually discuss this and share their perspectives. The good news is town and schools attorneys are working together on this. They are aligned in what needs to happen. There's no difference of opinion on that. But what's going to have to happen is run-out claims can come into the trust for a period of about 2 years after July 1. So the trust is going to need to exist for that period of 2 years. So there's an amended motion in your packet, and that motion language is designed to make clear that we're stopping active participation for health insurance purposes in the trust as of July 1st. The trust will need to continue for 2 years, and we will continue to participate in the trust for the purpose of paying run-out claims, and then the trust will be disbanded at the end of that 2-year period. So there's kind of that 3-part motion for you. We're going to have to follow that process. There's no easy way out of this, but wanted to just be really clear about what we're learning as this evolves from that. I am hoping that, by the time HIT meets, I think the end of April, we will have a cash flow projection ready to go. Sherry and Melissa, our treasurer, have been working on that. Sherry and I have been going over it. We've actually been going through bank accounts. We've been going through treasurer reports from HIT to just make sure we have a really good handle on the actual expenses. We have a meeting set up. If you remember, the district independently contracted with Cooking Company and Sue Shalou, who's been around for a number of years and knows the activity of the trust. We're going to bring that cash flow projection to her to ask her to also verify some of the numbers in that, so we feel comfortable with what we're bringing back. So I would hope that, by end of April, early May, we can actually show you as a school committee what we're projecting out as well. I think it's probably best that go through HIT first. For some feedback, because we want to make sure that, town and the health insurance trust are all on board with the numbers that we're including in our projections. And then that will give us a better handle on what we're going to budget and how that's going to have to play out. But it's certainly a very, very frustrating situation at this point. Claims are legitimate claims. It's, people need health care, and that happens. But the costs of the health care are extremely high right now, and that's certainly impacting the trust. Sorry for the very long update, but this is significant and important.
Thank you, Peter. All right, questions from the committee? Okay, I've got a couple, but Liz, go ahead.
My other question, and this is again not me suggesting anything, just knowing of the different levers. So if we were to, say not vote to pull the lever, let's say we get into that worst case scenario, because I'm a pessimist, we, have to pull that lever of OPEB trust again, but we vote not to do that. Would we then have to go back to the towns to request the additional money, or what would be the other option there?
I don't know the mechanism there. We could potentially go back to the towns to request the money. I think they would probably look at the schools to look at, excess and deficiency or other, items first would be my gut answer to that. The school department could go back to the towns. I think, I don't know what the appetite for that will be.
I'm pretty sure it would be less than none, but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that if we're looking at, okay, this is potentially worst case, I want to really look at the ugly.
Oh, and really, OPEB is not the preferred route, but it might be the only source of direct income that the district has access to, which is concerning.
Other questions? All right, I have some clarifying questions for you, Peter. So if I understand correctly, it's quite possible that the trust may not have enough funds in March to pay for the March claims. Is that correct?
They might get through March because even though they have the $310,000 balance, they also are going to get the normal monthly, payments from the town and schools. As I recall, that's about $1.5 million, I think. For us. And then the town is, we're about 80% of the total, so, 1.75 million, somewhere in that range. Plus the 300,000, that gives them probably about 2 million. It kind of depends on what happens with claims.
So maybe in the next month and a half to 2 months, they'll be out of funds, and they've asked for the town and the schools to prepay their portion. Are we also asking for the employees to prepay their portion?
No, the district would actually be, so the employees pay on a certain rate. You can't really ask employees to prepay. So what we would do is we would pay the district share of the premiums, and as the employees pay in, we would then pay that out to HIT as well. But, we would certainly not be going to employees and asking them to prepay.
Okay. And then by the time we get to June, we are no longer collecting or paying into the trust. Is that correct? Yes. And, well, so in theory, that's the goal. Because we'll be, as of July 1st, we'll be paying premiums to Maya for the health insurance through Maya.
Correct.
And we've budgeted the $600,000 as a buffer to help with the run-out claims. But after that, we're talking about potentially 24 months of run-out claims, for which right now we're projecting having $600,000 in our budget for next year to help support, and maybe something in the following year, but not guaranteed. And so this is why we're looking at going to reserve funds like OPEB to help sort of close out the open claims. You talked a bit about stop loss or reinsurance those. Do we expect that those claims will continue to come in over the 24 months that we're running out of the insurance?
Yeah, so, run-out claims are for claims that are incurred during FY24 is really what that is. And so we would continue to be covered by stop loss during that period of time, and we'd continue to receive money back to the trust. That doesn't change. Gallagher did give us a formula based on our current claims pace to be able to project out what run-out looks like, and they gave it to us after the trust meeting. We need to verify that because it's actually in the several $1 million range that it comes out to. So, I was a little surprised that we had to ask for that, and it was shared with us when we asked, but that had not been a topic of discussion yet with the trust. So I think there's a lot of conversation that needs to happen within HIT to really button up what the financial plan for how run-out is going to work and what that means for the town and for the schools.
All right. I will end with a comment once again, which is I'm still not very pleased with our consultant. I'm not blaming them for the situation that we're in, but I am not pleased with their ability to help us forecast these future expenses. And, regardless, we know we're running at about 20% over now, and if we continue to do that, we're going to be in a pretty big hole at the end of the year. So I'm glad that the district has gone and contracted with an outside consultant to help verify this, and I'm appreciative to the district and the finance department that are going to help us get a cash flow plan finally.
At this point, my philosophy is I'd rather know the bad news than the surprise, because we can't plan for a surprise, but we can plan for bad news.
One more time around the room here. Questions, comments? I am going to make an executive decision given the fact that this is a big financial concern. Are there any members of the public, including the Boxborough Finance Committee, who might have questions or comments that they wish to make at this time, knowing that this is something that's going to affect both towns? Or a retired member of the school committee who looks like he's just itching to come up and talk to us?
Well, I'll second your comment with respect to Gallagher. It's been extremely disappointing to, suffer for the lack of data. John Peterson, 6 Jackson Drive, just respect that formality. The estimate about what the liability might look like, it seems to me should be estimatable from IBNR. So at the end, that would be incurred but not received. So in the annual audit at the end of every year, there is an IBNR number. And my data's a little old, like myself, but the idea that that could be several $1 million just strikes me as foolishness. That's just not a reasonable number. A number more like $2 million might be okay. And as Andrew pointed out to me, although the reinsurance, doesn't necessarily help you in a cash flow sense, to the extent that, we have these really surprising claims, a bunch of that has to come back in stop loss. And the history of stop loss, if you look at that, is that most of that comes back in the first 3 months of the new year. So my view is that however this plays out, once you get 1 quarter into the next year, you'll really know what the number is. It will be unsettling in the meantime, but the several $1 million number, I get that somebody said it. People say a lot of things. I would ignore that.
Thanks, John. I'd say the whole situation's unsettling, but yeah. Andrew.
One more piece on that regarding the quarterly lag of additional funds coming into the trust. The way that we're currently using pharmacy and prescription-based rebates is that it's a quarterly lag as well. The expectation is to get at least 2 more rebate hits from Blue Cross Blue Shield after June 30th, which will bring in another few $100,000 plus into the account for each of these pieces.
Thanks. Okay. There is a recommended motion in the packet that we need to vote, given the sort of change in status of our withdrawal from the trust.
I got
Liz,
this one.
thank you.
I move that the committee hereby clarify its prior vote on March 7th, 2024 to withdraw from the Acton Health Insurance Trust effective June 30th, 2024, so that, first, the committee's active participation in the trust for purposes of providing health insurance to subscribers shall cease on June 30th, 2024. Second, the committee will remain a participating member of the trust through June 30th, 2026 for the sole purpose of administering and paying run-out claims and other costs of the trust. And third, the Acton Health Insurance Trust shall be completely dissolved as of June 30th, 2026.
Second.
I'll give that one to Andrew since he is the liaison to the Health Insurance Trust. And thank you for the emphatic third position there, Liz. So all of those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That is unanimous. Thank you all for that. Moving on to consent agenda items. As a reminder, items on our consent agenda don't usually require discussion and are approved with 1 vote, unless any member would like to hold an item for discussion or separate vote. So I'll read the 2 items on our list. If you'd like to have one of them held, you say hold. And as a reminder, you don't need to be present at a meeting to vote on the minutes. So item number 1 is approval of ABRSC meeting minutes of 3/7/2021. That is not correct. That's got to be 3/7/24. And meeting minutes from 3/21/24. And the approval of, item number 2 is the approval of the Regeneron STS 2023 School Award of $4,000 to the ABRHS. Okay, given that no items were held, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
That would be Leela and then Tori. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Also unanimous. And we're moving on to the statements of warrants and a recommendation to approve. Who would like to make the motion for that?
I mean, you've been doing so well with the words.
No, I have not.
No? Okay.
It's all you.
I move that the school committee vote to approve the below-listed warrants totaling $6,038,760.65. AP vendor warrants as follows. 24-019B dated March 21st, 2024 in the amount of $881,333.14. 24-020A dated March 28th, 2024 in the amount of $1,998,469.25. 24-020AS dated March 28th, 2024, in the amount of $4,654 even. Payroll vendor warrant as follows: 24-019PR dated March 21st, 2024, in the amount of $1,220,844.07, and payroll warrant as follows: P2419 dated March 21st, 2024, in the amount of $1,933,460.19.
Second.
That was Liz with the motion and Tori with the second again. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Also unanimous. Peter, anything you would like to highlight in the FYI this evening?
Couple things. One, we have, the election calendars are in your packet, so just to note that for you. School committee meetings for next year, we put together a proposed schedule of those as well, so it might be worth taking a look. I would suggest maybe sending Adam any feedback, or Adam, Julie, and I, so we can take a look if you see something that needs to be adjusted. And then Sherry also had done a conflict of interest form. Someone that she knows had applied for a position here, and so she called the State Ethics Commission, made sure that she was following the process, and that requires disclosure to the school committee. It doesn't require any vote, but we did put that in your packet just so you were aware.
Thank you. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Once again, Leela with the motion, Tori with the second. All those in favor? Aye. That is unanimous. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening.